to a HellTide event. I'm like, better luck next time. Another hour before the next one comes around, I'll have a better plan this time.
Now, granted, you can still get legendary items drop for you. You can still get really good drops inside HellTide experiences while you're killing monsters. So it's not like if you lose those sinners, you've lost all opportunities for rewards.
Yeah.
But obviously, it does take a little wind out of your sails if you just happen to get jumped at the wrong time. Again, another great opportunity for there to be players nearby when they're trying to help out in those situations.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I think is really cool about this is that these chests or caches, boxes with loot and awesome loot inside, right? You know, each time a HellTide appears, they're in different locations,
That's
right?
right.
So you have to go and find them, you know, as Riker was saying. But for the duration of that HellTide, they're in fixed places. So, you know, when you go into the HellTide area, it's useful to scout out and see where the caches are for the item slots that you're interested in. And then you can, you know, mentally remember, okay, here, I want to farm around here. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to get this item or whatever. And one thing I want to call out here, you know, you saw one of the caches on the screen earlier, you know, in some of our video that we captured for it. Now, we did capture that with the UI off, so you can't see the icon above it, but there is an icon that says, in here, there are boots.
That's correct.
So you will know before you open that cache what's in it.
And I mean, that's not all. I mean, there's other risks and dangers inherent in HellTide areas. You know, this is an opportunity for you to fight some different bosses. Again, like I mentioned before, there are different events and things that actually are going to be showing up. And of course, we can't really have such a wonderful experience as HellTide without our baby boy, the Butcher, showing up occasionally and causing serious mayhem and mischief in the overworld of Sanctuary. So lots of really fun things happen inside these HellTide areas over the course of the player's experience.
And it's also an opportunity to farm a special crafting material, right?
That's correct. There are craft materials like Fiend Rose and things that really are coming directly from HellTide encounters and those experiences. So you are looking to also get some of the materials you need for like really high tier like weapon and item upgrades from going through these places.
So HellTide is what we're doing to farm crafting materials in order to target farm specific drops. Another big activity that we're going to be doing, Nightmare Dungeons. You want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, Joe, do you have anything you want to talk about for Nightmare Dungeons first?
You know, Nightmare Dungeons are, we're going to talk again. We're going to talk about beta feedback at the end of the show here, or near the end of the show. But Nightmare Dungeons are our key dungeon replayability system for the later part of the game, right? And you're going to get sigils, and Joe's going to talk a little bit about the sigils. But we're really excited for players to get to check out all of the cool ways that the dungeons can really be transformed by the Nightmare Dungeon system.
Yeah, so first up, Nightmare Dungeons, very, very exciting system. Players haven't had a chance to play these in our betas yet, but as they get into the end game content, start going through World Tiers 3 and 4, you'll begin to see, you'll gain access to some of your first sigils, which are primarily initially earned by completing Whispers of the Dead, one of our other overworld content features that players will be able to engage with. Now, sigils are really interesting in that they are tied to a level when you find them, which is going to affect the level of the monsters inside that space. They have various afflictions, which we've talked a little bit about in streams in the past. These are going to modify the way that level rolls out. But Nightmare Sigils, when they are activated, after you collect one, is going to basically open up a portal near an existing side dungeon. And in the pre-release version of Diablo 4 and additional seasons, we basically select a subset of all of the side dungeons of the game that can become Nightmare Dungeons for that period. So players become more familiar with a set number of these because they know that they can be populated with these Nightmare Dungeon experiences. So you might already know, whether it's Annex Acclaim or whatever it is, what the layout of a given dungeon might look like normally. But Nightmare Sigil is going to change that by introducing these new afflictions and then also these greater afflictions. We showed earlier in the video, like this. Right now, actually, we're looking at this hell portal, nightmare portal that can open up and basically spawn in all these monsters from other like monster families. It might not be native to that dungeon, which is pretty cool. In that we like the idea that players are going to have to kind of deal with these new, different threats than what they're typically used to as part of that encounter. And there's a number of these other like greater afflictions, like we showed the Stormbane's Wrath, that disc thing that was flowing around around you, and occasionally it just pulses out this really big, stunning, damaging effect. So you have to be mindful of where it is. You should make sure you avoid it as part of the combat experience. Definitely adds a new wrinkle to gameplay as you're going through. And we add more of these afflictions as the player continues to level up and they get to go deeper and deeper into the Nightmare Sigil system, unlocking higher level sigils and dealing with more and more dangerous threats over the course of time. And this is a really great place, not only just to earn experience and really push your build and make sure that you're strong enough to tackle these sorts of challenges, but you'll also be able to. These are really great places to farm for sacred and ancestral items in particular, and these are the places that you're going to be upgrading your Paragon glyphs. We'll be talking more about the Paragon system right now. So, and that this is an opportunity to show the actual upgrade glyph screen. I just noticed hey, look, it's actually up right now. What timing? So yeah, when the player reaches the end of a Nightmare dungeon, they get to basically go ahead and take one of the glyphs they've been collecting over the course of their 50+ experience, and basically slot it into here and choose to upgrade it and make that glyph even more powerful. These socketables will go into your Paragon board and end up being some of the single most powerful modifiers you can apply to your character, above legendary powers, and even in some cases, even above some unique powers. So it's really in your benefit, based on your build, to be choosing, looking for a set number of these and upgrade them to exactly what you need them to do.
And so the sigils that we're getting, what I noticed is that if you get some afflictions that you don't particularly care about, we have the ability to salvage some in order to craft sigils of our own, right? I think it's a 4-to-1 ratio, is that right?
Yeah, just about. So you'll be able to get a lot of these different sigils by going through Nightmare Dungeons, completing Whispers, and through other content. And if you're finding sigils that you don't really want or don't really want to run, because maybe we're going to have enemies inside are going to do additional lightning damage, but you don't have a lot of lightning resist on your build. Maybe you want to go ahead and salvage that back at the Occultist, take that down to its sigil dust, and use that to basically make new random sigils for you to go ahead and run with. This is ways for players to kind of push themselves a little further. They'll unlock higher level sigils they can craft through the system over the course of time, and it's another way to kind of reutilize some of the sigils you might not be as interested in running from time to time.
Yeah, one thing I liked about the afflictions was it was making me make choices during the gameplay. Two that I can speak to, the Nightmare Gates that we were just showcasing. Let's say I'm in the middle of fighting an elite and I'm almost taking him down. I see that Nightmare portal opening and I'm like, okay, should I take care of that before it starts spawning more monsters, or do I finish this fight first? I'm forced to make a decision, and I got to live with the consequences if I think, maybe I should take him down, and then no, the fight becomes more challenging, and nope, I should have taken care of that gate first. Another one is, I forget the name, but it's some kind of blood cyst that starts to grow, and then if you just don't touch it, it eventually explodes in a huge area.
Yeah.
And it's either, okay, destroy it before it does that, or get the heck away as fast as possible. Again, making choices, and it's okay, I think I thought I had time to get away, then I got crowd controlled, and then boom, one shot. So I like how it changes the dungeon experience depending on which of these afflictions that you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's death counts in some of these as well. As time goes on, you get into the deeper ones. Where you got to be careful. You can't choose to just throw yourselves at these things, and if you're making mistakes, you have to really evaluate carefully how you're progressing.
Yeah. Sure.
That's true.
So yeah, you got a chance to play through some of those. So yeah, Nightmare Dungeon is very exciting, and they'll go up beyond level 100 as well. Actually, so this is a content type that you can actually fight up to creatures up to level 150. Actually, as part of the experience, based on how far you're able to push yourself as time goes on. So really excited about how far players can go with that.
All right, now you're talking about glyphs and the Paragon system, so let's talk more about those Paragon boards.
Oh, let's do it. Okay, Paragon boards. So we've talked a bit about Paragon in the past. We've shown pictures of the board just like this, and we've shown you things like, hey, look, here's normal node. And this is a way that you're going to earn 5 willpower. But that's not all this board is about. There's a lot of other complexity and things to deal with in here. So there are basically 4 types of nodes to kind of quickly reprise some of this information. The first, of course, is normal nodes. Then we have what you show here is magic nodes. These are different affixes that you can collect over the course of time. Usually they're a little bit more difficult to find a direct version of on items. So something like this, for example, crackling energy damage. So that's a sorceress, so a lightning spec sorceress ability, or passive effectively, where she'll occasionally be crackling out damage to nearby targets. You can now boost that by finding this particular magic node, which kind of might eventually unlock other builds for you to kind of go and chase after. But then there are rare nodes, which is on the next slide. And here, okay, so there's some information here. Rare nodes have a pretty powerful effect right off the bat. But then on top of that, there's this bonus effect down below that you can sort of see. Where on this one, it is, another 60% damage to elites. If you reach a certain amount of dexterity for your character. So the point here is that like rare nodes on their own, of which there's about 10 or more per board, rare nodes are already pretty powerful generically. But then on top of that, if you were able to hit these thresholds for the stat requirements for these rare nodes, that is going to make them very, very potent for you indeed. And when you're looking at the board, these are some of the most critical things you'd be thinking about when you're plotting your path through each board, which of course there are a number of boards available for you at launch. And then when you're able to rotate them, you'll have to choose how you want to progress through rare nodes, whether you want to engage with the legendary nodes or not. This is a really important thing.
Yeah.
One other bit about this, just because it's easy for me to forget about, is that when you're going from Paragon board to Paragon board, like in the first board, this might be the cost. But then when you're looking at the second board that you're progressing through, those requirements are actually going to go up. So it's not in your interest to go like run from board to board, just unlock as many of these as you can directly through that way. You need to spend a little bit of time into the board and pick the ones that you really want, because the next board that you unlock to get more rare nodes of different types, those will be a little more expensive to unlock those bonus effects.
The thing I think is really interesting about these is the way that I look at the board, right? When I open a Paragon board, the first thing I do is go and look at the nearest rare nodes to me, to where I'm starting, right? And then I look at the requirements for those bonuses, and then I start looking at the normal nodes on the way. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm pretty close to the dexterity required here through my gear. Are there some dexterity nodes that I could hit on the way here that would take me over it? And how much do I care about that particular bonus? And then I'm comparing it to the other ones, and I'm thinking about that. So the normal nodes actually become sort of a path that you're trying to take to turn on these bonuses.
Absolutely, and that's not all. There's one more node type as well, and then we're going to get back to normal nodes in just a second. So then we have our legendary nodes. So every one of the boards for each of the classes has a legendary node somewhere on it. And these are really, really powerful powers like you'd expect. They are a legendary power, effectively unique to the Paragon board system for that class and for whatever that particular board is trying to convey as its overall build type. So these are really, really powerful things to go and collect, but they're actually not the most powerful thing. This is just an additional extra powerful affix you can kind of apply to your character, but you kind of do this in concert with other things that you're looking for, like I mentioned, the rare nodes. And I also talked before about glyphs, and we're going to talk about that next. So when you basically, as you're going through the board, there are going to be these sockets that you can unlock, and the sockets are going to be sitting adjacent to a number of other regular nodes. Now, the way that glyphs work is that you're going to put them into one of these sockets, and they are going to be affecting nearby nodes and also fueled by other nearby nodes. So if you hit certain thresholds inside some of the glyphs, you're also going to unlock powerful bonuses. They're going to always also affect nearby nodes at the same time. And as I mentioned before, glyphs can be leveled up pretty high. They continue to grow the radius of the affected nodes as you level up through certain tiers. So it means they can affect larger and larger areas. And the boards are not symmetrical in nature as you're progressing through. Because the player can rotate their board and choose which gate they actually want to enter from, you have to like kind of choose from board to board where are the sockets on this board. Are they near the stats I really want for this glyph? Because this glyph is going to be fueled by dexterity nodes within range of the glyph effect, and it's going to do additional critical strike damage, whatever it's going to do for me as a result. That's a really, really important choice to make, and because all of the boards have different configurations, different socket locations, and different things near those sockets, you have a lot of interesting decisions to make about where you actually want to invest your time. And how does it matter? How does it feel to do this relative to the rare nodes you might need on that board from a different board instead? Fun decisions for players to make as they're going through. We want ultimately to feel like the Paragon board system allows for two incinerate, focus, burn type sorceresses to feel like they've got very different paths through the Paragon board, different decisions to make, even if all of their skill choices are identical.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about a lot with Diablo 4. Is the idea that even if you have let's say Incinerate is a powerful sorcerer build for and you want to play Incinerate, you're not going to necessarily be the same, have exactly the same loadout as another Incinerate sorcerer.
That's right.
One thing I found really cool about the Paragon system that I didn't realize at first is that every Paragon board is almost like a Paragon class, like a specialization class, where it's all built around a certain theme, fantasy, playstyle, and it all revolves around that central or off-central legendary node, and then the rares kind of support that same theme, and it extends to the blues. So like on a Necromancer, oh, this board is like the pure summoner fantasy, and this one is the Blood Mage. And looking at it that way really made it very cool for me to be able to explore. Okay, I can merge these two together. I'm going to go like bone and blood and just further, explore and dive into that specialization.
Yeah. No, there's 220 Paragon points that players will be able to have by the time they finish leveling up their character at level 100. We want those choices to feel like they've got meaning individually. Players can respect the number of those choices if they want for gold cost. We want to be able to play with this system and be able to like kind of experiment with different ideas as they go. But importantly, we want them to feel like that the choices they made for the 220 matter a great deal to their overall performance. Yeah, yeah, super fun. I think. No, but yeah.
What are we talking about next?
Well, I guess at this point we can talk about some of the beta learnings. We had a beta. The community gave a lot of feedback. And you folks took in that feedback, digested it, and transformed it into actionable change in the game. You want to talk to some of the things that were changed?
Yeah, I keep saying we're going to talk about that. Now is the time. So let's start out with looking at some of the class changes that we did. So there's a lot of text on this screen. You've had an opportunity, if you've been following along, to check out our blog that documents a lot of the changes that we were able to make as a result of feedback from players in the 2 beta weekends, and also from data that we get. You know, we get a lot of data. How many times someone dies in. Are necromancers dying a lot in this dungeon, or is this boss killing barbarians a lot of times? And we can use that alongside player data to identify areas where there might be a class deficiency, or areas where maybe something is exceptionally strong compared to other things that are balanced to be the same power. And so, in general, one of the things that we looked at from those 2 beta weekends is feedback that the barbarian and the druid, the melee classes, felt weaker than the necromancer, rogue, and sorcerer. And there are a lot of aspects to that. So there's some nuance in here, right? Like for the barbarian, we identified that the barbarian, at low levels in particular, needed more damage reduction sort of built in. And so we added this passive damage reduction. So you're just going to take 10% less damage, just flat, no matter what choices you're making as a barbarian, and that's to account for some of the ways the barbarian has to get up close and personal with their sort of weapon-heavy spec. We also identified elements of the druid that you could really benefit from some buffs. In fact, I think, Riker, you got to play the druid a little bit.
I did, yeah. So honestly, when I first saw the patch notes, I was like, oh, I was hoping the druid would have gotten a bit more love with regards to spirit generation. But then I played an endgame build of, it was a perma werewolf storm druid. So I'm a werewolf who's casting storm skills, and the play style was so tight, it flowed so well. It just all gelled together once you got the full kit, the full build together. And I went into this week with a certain class favoritism. Where I had rogue, I had necromancer, sorceress, barbarian, and then druid in dead last. I'm completely confused now. I think druid might be my favorite now.
Yeah, it's, another thing that we did, if we take a look at the classes again, another thing that we did in terms of the melee classes is we took a look at bosses and monsters, in particular their attacks that deal damage in an area where it feels like there wasn't a way for the melee class to deal damage effectively while also avoiding incoming damage, right? Because a lot of times you'll have the opportunity for a ranged class range class is sometimes choosing between getting a better position and doing more damage damage per second, and a melee class is sometimes choosing between taking damage, because even with the case of a projectile, the projectile is originating in many cases from the monster and then traveling, so you have less time to react in some cases, and so we took a look at boss abilities and bosses that our data showed were much more deadly to melee classes, and we adjusted some of those abilities. Now, this also affects the Necromancer class, because you might notice that we had a note here that states that summon minions will die more often. Now, we want the corpses to have sort of an economy. We want to have the sense that corpses are useful. You're using them to bring in more skeletons. And the necromancer pets, as a theme of this sort of bone class, they are a little bit more disposable, right? Like if a skeleton dies, you just pop out another one from a nearby corpse. So we want them to be, dying and getting resummoned. And we want to make sure that there are plenty of corpses, so you're not going into a boss and running out of, like, oh, I don't have any pets and I'm a pet builder. We certainly want to make sure that you have pets available, but we want them to be kind of coming back from time to time. So we increase the damage that they take a bit, but we also, I was talking about areas where bosses were doing too much damage to melee. We also took a look at cases where there were abilities that felt unfair for pets, where there was just like a huge damage in a huge area, and maybe it's no problem for a player to get out of it, but trying to micromanage your pets to get out of this.
Micromanage an army of skeletons going around, yes.
That's not a fun gameplay that we're trying to capture specifically with the Necromancer class. So we modified the damage that those kinds of powers do to pets, both Necromancer and Druid pets, in fact.
Yeah, we do want to make sure that managing your minions to some degree is part of the mastery of playing a Necromancer, and that, like, when skeletons go down, you need to accommodate that and make sure that you have corpses that you've been generating or keeping on hold for some of these situations. We feel that is definitely part of the fantasy of the Necromancer class is needing to resummon, to your point, these kind of disposable soldiers that are supposed to be helping you. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that continues to hold true, but not to a point where like an army necro can't go fight bosses. That's obviously not what we're trying to build with any of these changes, of course. We just want to make sure that the Necromancer does get a chance to engage with those parts of the mechanics.
Now another...
I did get to play the Summoner Necro, and I was summoning my minions regularly, so it was something that was a continuous part of the gameplay, but I never found myself in a position where, I'm out of minions, I'm out of corpses, so the corpse generation rate it felt good. I'll admit that passive minions is not my favorite playstyle. I would love the ability to direct them, but for what you intended to accomplish, I felt you did.
Yeah, so, one of the other areas of feedback, we have a note here that says, that might be a little bit confusing. It says, we reviewed the class skills to confirm that there were good options to get out of control impairing effects. In many cases, what we mean is unstoppable, which is the effect in Diablo 4 that clears all control impairing effects, crowd control effects, and makes you immune to them for the duration of that effect. So the classes are designed so that every class is intended to have access to a good set of options to clear crowd control, so that there is an interaction here between, monsters are doing crowd control and I have options to remove it, but I need to think about those options. And we saw feedback during the beta that at early levels, some classes felt like they didn't have enough options there. Riker, in your play at the higher levels, did you feel like that was still an issue?
I don't remember it being an issue at the high levels of play, no. Going back to my favorites, Barbarian now is my second favorite after being my fourth. Again, yeah, the melee playstyle I felt gelled really well with a high-level Barbarian. It all came together. I didn't feel I was being punished for being in melee. I didn't feel constantly crowd-controlled or an inability to gap close. He had the spears to bring enemies to me, the lunging attack to close the gaps, and a good toolkit to deal with everything.
So the last thing I want to note on classes, of course, is that there are a few other changes beyond what you're seeing here. I think, some people called out Hydra changes. We made a lot of small changes to classes. There are also some cases like legendary powers. We updated legendary power effectiveness, which is sort of vague, but it's really just that there are a bunch of small details, and we're sort of tweaking them. The other thing I want to talk about is dungeons, right?
Yeah.
So we got a lot of feedback from players that there was a lot of running back in dungeons, and there were really two ways that we wanted to tackle this. First off, of course, if we have a situation where you're running back, we have a system that causes monsters to ambush you to make sure that it's not just running through an empty space. So we added more ambushes. But secondly, and this is really the more effective aspect of it, we changed the layouts of dungeons and where objectives were located in the dungeons.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Look at this. Graphic design is our passion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I wish that I made this graphic because it's.
I did laugh really hard when I saw this the first time.
So
I love it so
evocative,
much.
but I did not make it. But I think this is a great example. So this is one of the dungeons that players called out in beta, Hoarfrost Demise, right, as one that had a lot of run back. And one of the reasons that you can see here that it has so much run back is that the objectives are laid out in a way that you have to run down a long, narrow hallway to get to one, and then you have to run back. It's a dead end, and then you have to run back down that narrow hallway. So we changed the layout of Hoarfrost Demise like this.
Right.
So you can see that the objectives, which are those diamond icons there on your screen, are along the main path of the dungeon. And remember now, in this case, the player has explored all of the dungeon and you can see all of the map.
Yeah.
But when you're playing through the dungeon, you don't have, the map is fogged, you haven't explored it yet. But it's set up in such a way that as you're exploring through the dungeon, you're going to naturally encounter those objectives along your way, and so you're not going down and then having to backtrack a long way.
Yeah, and in our objective view, this was going to lead to smiles. Yeah. This is good. But no, it's important. Like we want to make sure that as you're progressing the space, you are naturally coming across these objectives in a simpler way, as opposed to you need to like kind of like wander and kind of like backtrack a lot more as part of that.
Yeah, and in fact, we identified a number of dungeons that got this feedback in beta, and we also, we were talking about nightmare dungeons. We also want to make sure that nightmare dungeons have this. We address this for nightmare dungeons as well because it's a key replayability system, as we were just talking about earlier. This is another example of Cordragon Barracks. It's another dungeon that we saw a lot of feedback and screenshots from beta, where you can see that the objectives are set up such that clearly you're going to have to run back all the way back through that long hallway. You're going to spiral around. You have to go out. You have to explore out from those spirals, and you can end up getting confused and running back. Because the other thing that happens here is that if you've run to an objective and the next thing that you have is back along a path that you know about already, then why wouldn't you just run back along that path that's empty of monsters? It's not fun. It's more fun to kill monsters, but it's more efficient than exploring some unknown that might or might not lead back to it, right? So that's a key part of these layout changes as well. And if you take a look at the next shot here, you can see how we rearranged the objectives in Cordragon to ameliorate this.
Yeah. Now, these aren't the only changes that we made either. There's some other things we did to actually just straight up regular objectives. So there's things like, there are some dungeons where the players are asked to kill all the monsters inside a dungeon space. And in those situations, we've made it so like once the players reach a certain threshold of monsters they've killed, rather than saying like, there are potentially as many as 50 zombies in this cave. After the player has killed, 49 zombies, they might still be normally looking around in the last corner where a zombie is kind of like hiding in a closet someplace, right? In this situation, instead, once you reach a certain threshold of zombies that you've killed, now they actually begin chasing you down. They start looking for you in that situation, such that you don't need to go crawl through the entire space and explore every inch of unexplored area in that dungeon just to find the zombies. Some of them are going to come after you in those situations, which is a great change to make it a little bit easier to engage with those things. And then there's another one, like we have features or dungeon objectives where the player is asked to go and collect like anima, which are just these objects, they're like these motes of energy that drop on the ground when you kill certain kinds of monsters. Sometimes you need to go and gather a whole bunch of these things and then bring them back to another area to deposit them. Sometimes it opens a door, might summon a boss, all kinds of things that we do with this. But in these situations now, when players are collecting this anima when they're running around the dungeon trying to find all these creatures and do these things, you're going to also gain various buffs by picking these up. You're going to gain some resource back for your class. You're going to get some other things. It's actually really great. When you actually deposit these things, you're going to get a health potion. So there's lots of things we're trying to do to make sure that those experiences help speed you up and feel great to engage with, while you're also going through a lot of the layout changes that Joe just talked about.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out kill all monsters, because players rightly identified a couple of key problems. Like first off, with kill all monsters, of course, if you're having to go and hunt down one of those monsters, that's effectively backtracking, right? You're running through an empty space. And the other aspect of it is that the sort of the intensity curve of the excitement in the dungeon is going down. Like you're backtracking through a bunch of empty space, and then when you get there, it's not going to be an exciting moment. There's going to be four monsters hiding in the corner, and you're going to kill them, and it's going to feel sort of like, well, I guess that was a requirement that I had to check
one
off.
spider.
Right?
Yeah, it's almost similar to like Den of Evil, Diablo 2 feel and so forth, but now them being able to seek you out means less backtracking, less hunting in corners for that one fallen or wherever.
Well, yeah, and the other thing I like about it is that it increases the intensity at the end of the dungeon, right? Because you have the monsters, you're still clearing the last monsters, and now you have monsters running at you. But what was your experience with these changes?
Yeah, so this was probably my #1 complaint about the beta was the backtracking. I'd often, in a dungeon at some point, reach a point where I'm like, okay, I have to run back or I have to go look for a monster. And with these changes, I don't think I ever had one of those moments, or at least, I'm not going to say there was zero backtracking, but there wasn't enough that it would have come up as an issue that I would have complained about. I know some people, say, oh, suck it up, backtracking has always been part of Diablo, it's part of the game. But like the changes made hasn't made the experience linear. It's not like, oh, now we just have one quarter to go down. As you were saying, like now if you do go on a side path, there could be things to run into. But just overall, everything from an experience standpoint just flows a lot better.
I know with beta learnings and everything that we took in from the community and we posted on the blog, we actually had a big question in regards to dungeons and resetting dungeons and how that actually works. And I do want to take some time for you guys to be able to clarify a little bit, because there's tons of questions. And then we tried to clarify, and I think we made it worse. So we're going to...
Let's re-clarify the clarification.
Exactly.
Yes, so the reset dungeon button, right? So we added this button earlier in development when there wasn't an easy way for dungeons to reset naturally. In fact, the way we added it led to some undesirable secondary effects because it was instant. It didn't care if you were inside the dungeon. It doesn't care if the dungeon is partially completed. If you're a hardcore character and you're in danger, you can just press it and presto, you're all good. And since we initially added this button, the amount of time for dungeons to reset organically, we've been working with our online team and we've been making changes to, over the course of development, like how Town Portal works, how dungeon reset work. And so the way that it works today, if you are outside the dungeon, and if everyone from your party is outside the dungeon, so if you're alone, just you, and there are no town portals open in the dungeon, then the dungeon will naturally reset over a period of about 60 seconds, about 30 seconds of matchmaking and 30 seconds of cleanup. Or if it's partially completed, like maybe you got halfway through and you're like, you know what, I have to do something else, I'm going to go, kill a world boss, or, I want to do something else now. Then it'll take a little bit longer to reset. It takes about 150 seconds, but it'll still reset naturally pretty quickly. And the other case here is that you've got maybe you're doing the dungeon and there's some particular objective in the dungeon or side quest in the dungeon, and someone, one of your friends joins and they want to do that side quest too, right? But maybe you've already completed it in this dungeon. So you can also hop out of the dungeon, which you can use through the Leave Dungeon button right in the UI as well. It does have a short cast time, so
not as quick, yeah.
But it's quite it's right through the UI. You can do it from anywhere. Invite the other person to the party, to your friend to the party, make them leader, hop in, you'll get a fresh dungeon as well.
Yeah, so hopefully that clarifies. You can still reset. Resetting dungeons is still a thing in D4. It's just we removed the button essentially, so you just have to wait a little bit longer for the dungeons themselves to reset. And I did want to go over two two specific changes that we also obtained through beta that we didn't actually record on the blog. One you actually tweeted about, which was about ultra-wide screens,
yes,
and being able to control cast distance and so forth, and with specific abilities and whatnot. So people who are using ultra-wide or mega ultra-wide screens wouldn't be able to essentially cast to the furthest corner of their screen and be able to use abilities in that type of way. And then one other thing that we did notice during beta, which was world boss encounters and how players would actually complete a world boss encounter and then go back to town and then find another way of being able to, in that same window, go through another world boss encounter to obtain multiple opportunities of grabbing loot, which is something that we also did address through the beta learnings that we received from players. So
that's true. Now, I'll point out that the first time you kill a world boss in a week, you are going to get more loot than you'll get on subsequent times. So there's additional incentive to there's less incentive to try to find a way to kill the same world boss 10 times, but you certainly will get some rewards from it.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's not the exact rewards or a clone of the rewards that you got from the first kill themselves. Great. I know we ended up learning a ton from the community in regards to the beta. Obviously, you guys got to hear a little bit about the endgame systems within Diablo 4. We do have a cool... What's this?
Is it time for a surprise?
Is it time for a surprise? It is time for a surprise.
Wait, what?
If you've been hiding on the internet and have not seen Rod Ferguson make very, very nonchalant tweets about this,
this is the and more.
This is the and more of the actual broadcast, I would say. So happy to announce that we've been hearing a lot of feedback from players about wanting to experience more Diablo 4 and check it out, before the game's release in June. And so on May 12th through May 14th, we are going to be hosting a Server Slam event where all players within Diablo 4 or who want to play Diablo 4 can jump in and actually check out the game again. This is a really important weekend for the team and the dev team here because we need as many people to really log in, check out Diablo 4 and play through the game because we need to test out our servers some more before we actually launch. Joe, I know you have a lot of want and need and emphasis towards this specific weekend, so I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, so first off, all of the changes that we just talked about in this live stream will be in place on the Server Slam.
Yeah, so huge news right there where if you want to check out any of the changes that we made from beta, you will be able to actually check them out that weekend on May 12th or May 14th.
That's right. And the other thing I want to point out is that we recently announced that we've gone gold, that Diablo 4 has gone gold. And that means that, we got all of those changes from the betas in. We did tons of, we learned a ton of stuff in terms of our servers, in terms of server configuration, making sure that we were fixing bugs. We deployed hotfixes during those 2 weekends. And so we were able to really improve our confidence for launch through that. And that's why, we're so confident in announcing that we've gone gold. Now, the purpose of this weekend is to slam those servers, right? Really make sure that everything is exactly perfect for launch because that's really what's important to us, right? We want players to have a good experience on day one when the game launches. And, so come slam our servers. Now, of course, this is very helpful for us because, and it's helpful if you want to play on day one.
It's helpful for the Diablo 4 community to come help us slam our servers, but
that's not the only reason to do it. When you participate in the Diablo 4 Server Slam, you're going to have another chance to earn the rewards from the first 2 beta weekends. So if you didn't get a chance to play because maybe you were traveling or for any other reason, you have another chance to get your Beta Wolf Pack cosmetic and the 2 titles. And in addition to that, we've, for this Server Slam weekend, we've set the level cap to level 20. We've adjusted the legendary drop rates to be consistent with what you'll see on live, rather than the inflated drop rates that we had in the first 2 beta weekends. Which were there to make sure that we got plenty of testing on our legendary powers. And on top of that, you're going to have 48 hours to slam these servers, right? Now, during this time, a Shava is going to spawn starting about 24 hours after the servers go up, and then every 3 hours after that. So you can have, I think it's 9 opportunities to fight a Shava. Now, if you get to level 20 and you kill a Shava while you are level 20, so max level in this test, in this period of time.
What level is it though?
20.
It's 20. So you got to be level 20.
Yeah.
To get
don't show up in the Shava at level 5 and think you're going to get this.
Yeah, expect you'll get the
Right.
reward.
But what you're going to get is this Cry of a Shava mount trophy, which is exclusive to this Server Slam weekend. You can see it here on your screens.
Yeah, the trophy there and that horse's hip on the saddle there. Very nice. Oh wow, that's bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
We basically
Oh my God.
cut a horn, part of a Shava's horn
Yeah.
off, and added some gilding and some nice metal work there. And of course, mount trophies in Diablo are cosmetic customizations that you can add to your mount along with mount armor. So this is a trophy that you can mount. It mounts, some trophies mount on the saddle. I don't know why I'm pointing to my shoulder. This is where the shadows go, apparently.
Yeah.
Or they can mount on the side, on the horse's flank, like you see here with this trophy.
Yeah, so again, like all rewards from the original first 2 weekends of the beta, including the 2 titles and the beta wolf pack will be available, as well as the Cry of Ashava mount trophy. And for the mount trophy, you have to be level 20 and kill Ashava. All classes will be available, and you'll be able to explore Fractured Peaks again from the 2 beta weekends that we had beforehand. And of course, Ashava will be spawning much more often in this Server Slam weekend for players to actually jump in and obtain the rewards and really help us out, help out the team, and make sure that we have a smooth launch for Diablo 4 come June. So huge news for all of this. And we will have a blog that will be going either live right now or live immediately after the broadcast for players to actually read about all this information. And that will be available on Diablo4.com. So make sure to check out the blog, get all your information there, and jump in on our Server Slam weekend, March 12th through March 14th. It's another opportunity to play Diablo 4 before the launch, which is really great. And you can test all the new beta changes, which is really cool. And one other thing that I do want to note for at least PC players who are jumping into the Server Slam weekend, the team here has done some massive work on some of the PC optimization from the first 2 beta weekends. DLSS3 for NVIDIA cards will also be available for people to try out in the Server Slam weekends. Or a Server Slam weekend. Sorry, there's only one. I don't want to like set expectations or anything. But there's more graphic options and optimizations and so forth for PC players to check out. Yeah, looking forward to everyone really hitting the servers and really helping out with the game. We do want to jump into Q&A because we always end with Q&A. Riker actually has a bunch of questions that he was asking his own community that we will most definitely go through as well. And then we're also going to be grabbing some questions here from chat and so forth. One question that we have been seeing that has come up within the community beforehand, and we'll start off with this one, which is how long will it take us to get through the Battle Pass? It's a question that a lot of people in the community have been talking about over the last week and a half. And I know that we wanted to talk about it a little bit more here.
Yeah, I think that there's a. So I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I think one thing I really want to emphasize is that when we think about the Battle Pass for the for Diablo 4 after the game ships, we're looking at our seasonal players. We want to make sure that the players who are going through the Battle Pass, they're going to have a lot of content to consume, outside the Battle Pass. They're in all likelihood to finish everything in the Battle Pass before they finish all of the content within a season to season. So there's a ton of things to look forward to. We want to make sure that the Battle Pass as a result is balanced in such a way that players of all types and all play styles are able to get a chance to actually complete this this Battle Pass over the course of time. Our goal is if you want to start to engage with this, want to make sure that you are compelled to go through all of it as you're playing and just having a good time getting all of these rewards.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Riker, I know you have questions. I want to make sure that you get some questions in and so forth. And I guess we'll just go back and forth for this. It'll make it easier for these two guys.
You guys, we'll just be doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep doing that.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, so first off, something that you were, I think, touching upon earlier, and correct me if I misunderstood, but I think On the topic of Nightmare Dungeons, it sounds like every season there's going to be a rotation of 30 dungeons that can be turned into the Nightmare Dungeons. Is that right?
So we want to make sure that we've got a subset of the dungeons we have in the overall game. There's over 115 or so like side dungeons available in the baseline Diablo 4 experience. We want to take a subset of those each season. The exact number we're working on, we're going to think about that and think about it. But a number of those we rotate every season to make sure that we are highlighting different kinds of objectives, different sorts of layouts, different monster families, just different experiences. And we also don't want players to feel that they're going to have this where they have to be thinking about all 115 different dungeons every season, every time, with regard to this system in particular. So that is the idea, is we do want to rotate through these from season to season while we're looking to introduce other ideas. Yeah.
Cool. I got a question here from, I'm not going to butcher Twitch names, guys. I do this every stream.
From a Twitch user.
From a Twitch user in chat. Do you have any plans to keep interest for people who don't plan to play in seasons?
So we are going to be making, on a regular basis, part of our live updates. We're not quite ready to talk about all of our seasonal plans and all of our post-launch plans yet, but I will say this, that we're going to be having a lot of really rich and interesting content updates for our seasonal players, but we're still be making balance changes and adding new legendary items and unique items and things of that nature for players who are playing in the Eternal Realm, the place where you will be able to never have to worry about a character reset or do any of those things. There will always be new infusions of some game content at that level to players going in that space.
Cool.
But for the richest experience in the post-launch environment, I would highly recommend checking out Seasons because we're doing some really, really cool stuff.
All right. So one thing that I noticed in the December press beta to the public beta was that changes were made to the skill tree. There were new passive skills, there were new paths made amongst the passive nodes. So I'm wondering, was the skill tree designed in such a way that you can, over the course of seasons or expansions, add new passive or active skills?
Yes. So the skill tree really that we have for Diablo 4 at launch really is just the beginning for these classes. We are going to be looking for new opportunities to create more playstyles within each of the classes. We'll be adding new passives, potentially new skills in the future. These are things that we would like to do. It is likely that these kinds of updates, particularly of new passives, new nodes, new things in the skill tree, are more likely to happen as part of our our future larger expansion size updates, rather than things might be happening as part of seasons. We have lots of interesting customization options we're going to be adding as part of seasons, but they might not touch the skill tree specifically.
Okay.
We've been seeing this question a lot. I've been seeing it in chat as well, and there's I think some confusion in regards to altars of Lilith, how those will work in between seasons, or will those reset? How does that specifically work?
Sure. So Altars of Lilith are one of the features that players can go and collect basically in the overworld that we're going to contribute to their renown total within each of the zones.
Well, and give permanent character power as well.
Well, I'm going to get there.
Okay.
So there's two purposes really that the Altars of Lilith have. They have this larger collectible feature where you want to kind of go get all of them for the stat points that you just called out,
yeah.
And then they also provide the renown. So renown is reset on a seasonal basis. So when you start a new character, your renown score goes back down to 0. You'll have to go and finish side dungeons, go do side quests, go find Altars of Lilith, go do these things in order to kind of get that renown back up to unlock all of those benefits. Now, you don't need to go do all of that content in the zone to max out your renown bar. There's actually way more activities that grant renown than you actually need to complete in order to finish going through and filling up all of the renown and getting all 5 tiers of the rewards. When it comes to the stat gain, so basically, to your point that you're just speaking about, Altars of Lilith also have another purpose, in that when you find one, they give you a stat boost that is supposed to apply to your character and all characters in that realm. The way that's going to work is that once you've collected that stat boost from a specific Altar of Lilith, that stat effect is going to propagate out to other characters of that game type. So basically, Hardcore is going to have its own progression for this, where it's if you were playing a Hardcore character at launch and you go and you do all these things, those stat boosts you collect will propagate to your Hardcore characters you would make in the seasonal realm. And the same is true for players who are playing in the normal realm and playing the normal game mode. All the stat boosts they're unlocking via the Altars of Lilith will also unlock for their seasonal characters in the future, such that players don't need to go and collect every Altar of Lilith with every new season, but you do want to get some of them. They do still grant experience, and they do give you some bonus towards your boost towards your renown. But there's not the sense that you need to go and do every single one of them every single time. We want that to be a really fun experience for players to engage with, particularly while they're exploring Sanctuary for their first couple times at most, and have that bit of fun. Otherwise, players can choose to engage with them or ignore them as they go into their seasonal playthroughs in the future.
Right. So characters, if you unlock a permanent stat boost in Season 1, that will persist into Season 2.
That's correct.
All right. With regards to item farming, we touched upon how HellTide, you can target farm specific slots. Is there any other kind of item types where either you can only get this item in this zone, this location, or is there some greater propensity for some items to drop off certain monsters, anything like that?
So we have a number of different creatures in the game that have a chance to drop particular things. World bosses, for example, have a really, really good chance to drop Scattered Prism, which is the crafting material you need in order to add sockets to items in the game. And then there are certain content types that have the chance to grant certain materials, like Fiend Rose, for example, really only shows up in HellTide areas. And the only way to raise the level of your glyph is by going through and doing nightmare dungeons. When it comes to item farming, we also, and I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I think it's good to remind people and also just to continue talking about it, right? Because it's a new mechanic. And that is that when you're fighting creatures of a certain monster family, like zombies or skeletons for their respective families, those monsters have a higher chance to drop certain kinds of items. It's actually a bonus chance to drop certain item types kind of happening in the background. So it's not like if an item, like for example, skeletons have a chance, they have a chance to drop crossbows, irrespective of your class. So you're playing a barbarian, which can't use crossbows as one of its weapon types, and you could be killing all these skeletons, and you might just get a crossbow drop as a result of that. That's tradable with rogues. You know, there's other things you can do with that, but that's not taking a roll from the skeleton. It could drop everything else in addition to that crossbow. It's like an extra bonus thing that that skeleton can drop. Every monster family has a few different things they drop this way. So as players are going through the experience, and particularly while they're leveling up in the campaign, they'll occasionally start saying like, oh, I'm getting like a lot of like rings from this, or I'm getting a lot of boots from this, or I'm getting a lot, and they'll realize that over time, over the course of time, that these are being dropped based on the monster families they're engaging with. So as players discover more of this, they continue to fight more monsters and start mapping some of these things out, they will uncover the right areas or the best areas potentially to farm for certain kinds of things. And that includes like unique items as well. So if you're looking for a unique crossbow, maybe it behooves you to try to fight a lot of skeletons because you know they have a chance to drop crossbows in addition to other things. So these are the sorts of things that, like, as you're diving deeper into like the hunting gameplay, the item hunting gameplay, these are things to look at. That's not the end. There's a lot more we're going to be doing as the game continues to mature and as we're going into like our post-launch period. But you know, we'll talk about that when the time's right.
Fair enough.
This one is kind of tied to some of the Server Slam stuff that we just announced, which is, will there be any additional changes made to the game after the Server Slam weekend, like what was done during the beta?
No, we announced that the game has gone gold. The Server Slam is, you're testing a version of the game that is very close to the launch version of the game. That's why it's so effective as a Server Slam. Now, of course, as a live service game, we're going to be continuing to take feedback exactly like you saw during the beta, after the game has launched, and making changes and making improvements based on data and player feedback.
Awesome.
All right, overlay map versus mini-map. Mini-map is a little map in the top right corner. Overlay is what we had in the past in D2, where you have this semi-transparency of the large-scale map over your actual gameplay. D4 does not have an overlay map. A lot of people are asking for it. What's the reason for no overlay?
Yeah, so when you're playing through an action RPG and you're playing through that core loop, you're basically switching between two modes of behavior, right? You're killing monsters or you're navigating. And you're switching back and forth between those really quickly. And so it can be helpful to have that be as fast as possible so that you can I just killed those monsters. Okay, where am I going to go? Is there an objective to the left or right? Right. And so the overlay map is very effective at doing that. In fact, it's so effective that it's up there's no reason to ever close it. And so there are a lot of solutions that we've seen different games do in terms of like trying to mitigate sort of its effects on combat in terms of fading areas around the player or other things like that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the combat and navigation spaces as clean as possible by separating them a little bit more. And so that's why you see the mini-map, you see the pin system on the map, you see, in certain cases, edge of screen indicators on the mini-map. We want to add more of those kinds of things. But ultimately, our goal is to make sure that players, when they're going back and forth between combat mode and navigation mode, that they have the tools that they need to do it efficiently, and they don't feel like it's a huge hassle. So we're going to be continuing to look at this feedback. We for launch, you won't have an overlay map. We're trying to make that experience as smooth as possible. But we're going to continue to listen to player feedback on this point.
All right.
We have a question saying, are all dungeons going to be single floor iterations with halls like traversing, or are we going to get like maybe multi-level dungeons or anything that brings like elevation or depth and so forth into those?
It's interesting that one of the things that we did in Diablo 4 that's really cool is that you don't have to load between dungeon floors. An interesting effect of that is that you might not always notice when you're going down a floor into a lower floor. There is there are staircases and there are sort of moments where that shows up, and there's UI that appears that shows up. But in many cases, our dungeons do have multiple floors, and because it's so seamless, you don't always notice. Now, in terms of when you think back to Diablo 1 and adventuring down through the cathedral, and it's this very deep dungeon. Our dungeon tech can certainly do that too, and that's certainly something that could be a cool option for the future.
Awesome.
All right. With regards to PvP, is there any kind of instancing to separate out solo players versus groups, or are we going to see like 4-man squads ganking lonely players?
Yeah, you will see 4-man squads ganking lonely players. I want to make sure I'm really clear about this. The fields of hatred that we have in Diablo 4 are not a place for honor. They're a place for slaughter. So if you go into those spaces, you need to be mindful that you are entering a chaotic realm of danger and threat. That's the fantasy. That's what we're trying to do. Now, players who go into these spaces might also be fortunate and find that there's a number of other players that are trying to peacefully farm up in various resources while they're fighting there, and not actually be interested in engaging in PvP immediately. That also is a situation you might occasionally find yourself in. Maybe you decide that you want to take advantage of them, and you show up and decide that you want to go and gank those players and take their things. Greed gets the best of us all at some point in time. But I want to make it really clear that there are things in place in terms of how we bucket players by level and things like that to ensure that you're not always going up against like really, really high level players at a very, very low level. But in terms of like, I'm walking in this space, is there any guarantee that there aren't 3 people somewhere roaming around this area looking to gank lonely people like me? The answer is there is no mechanic in place to prevent that from occurring. So you need to be mindful of that when you're walking around here. Go in there with friends or walk in and be prepared to occasionally die. Especially when you immediately walk into a field of hatred, if you were to immediately get killed by other players, there's actually no real penalty for you in that case. That you haven't started to acquire any of the PvP resources in that zone yet anyway. So they have nothing to gain from killing, and you have nothing to lose as a result of that death. So, yeah, things to experiment with, but go in with the right set of expectations.
But there is some pseudo matchmaking to stop like level 100 players ganking level 25 players?
That's correct. There is some bucketing in place to make sure that doesn't occur.
I would add too that the fields of hatred are fairly large areas.
Yes.
So there are some tools to avoid the same group of players repeatedly killing you. There are also two fields of hatred, so you can move between fields of hatred. Mm-hmm. And there are things like elixirs that can allow you to be more evasive or get away from situations where you feel like you're at a disadvantage. There are also, when you think about the fields of hatred mechanic, you're collecting these shards of hatred, mm-hmm. And you're refining them so that you can turn them in for rewards. The locations that you can do that, there are several locations, typically active at a time. So you can sort of do some strategizing about where there might be enemy players and where it might be safe.
That's right. When an altar is being used to purify those shards of hatred into red dust, you'll actually see a notification on your map letting you know where that's actually occurring. So if you see that there's a lot of activity in the northwestern part of the zone, maybe that's a great time to sneak over to the southeastern side and try to quietly and quickly cleanse some red dust of your own. Because once it's cleansed, you can't lose it. You don't drop it.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. We have a lot of questions related to like seasonal stuff and battle pass stuff. I just want to note that we actually are our next live stream in May, in early May, soon TM will be actually focusing a little bit on our seasonal structure as well as Battle Pass and so forth. So we're actually going to leave those comments specifically for that. I keep looking down at the monitor, and the people in production behind me keep going, Adam, what's wrong with you? That's just me. In regards to other quick questions that we do have, I'm going to just lightning off a few questions that have been coming up. These are kind of related, I would say, but one is co-op on PC. Have we looked at doing something like that? And then separately, mouse and keyboard on console. Is that something that we've also looked into?
No couch co-op on PC, no mouse and keyboard on console.
There you go. Mainly because, as you guys know, PC, like the account structure on Battle.net and having 2 accounts at the same time on one PC is a little difficult. And then on console, right now it's just controller play. And as we get past launch and so forth, we'll look at more into feedback and everything from that end.
I guess last question from me. With regards to the crafting system, can we expect that to be something that is built up to be more robust over time with regards to either seasons or, again, expansions?
Oh, yes. So Diablo 4 is a game about killing monsters, collecting loot, screwing around with that loot to do fun things and make it get more performance out of it, modifying those things, looking for the right affix. Yeah, we're going to absolutely continue to be just changing some of the crafting options, modifying them, providing new options that don't exist right now, building upon things we already have in place. You can expect to see a lot of things. Like Diablo 4 is a live service because it's a rich bed of opportunities to continue to refine, change, update, and modify the systems we have in place right now. So yeah, you'll definitely see more crafting features over the course of time.
Awesome. Last few small questions. People have been asked about ray tracing because we mentioned the NVIDIA DLSS 3 will be coming in. The Server Slam ray tracing is coming after launch. It's something that we had talked about earlier. Let's see. This is an interesting question. If you're on your mount, can you actually pick up crafting materials and stuff like that while you're on your mount in the overworld?
There are a number of simple actions you can perform when you're on a mount. I believe right now you can pick up herbs when you're mounted. Yes.
Cool. I'm trying to see if we have. The chat's moving incredibly fast. A lot of people are talking about WASD movement right now. We don't have any plans for incorporating that. It's something that we may look into post-launch or whatnot from our end. Cool. I think we got a decent amount of questions in. Talked about this, the beta learnings, and of course all the information about Endgame
and the Server Slam.
Ashiba's
Server Slam.
Yeah.
Yeah. On you mentioned WASD movement, so no. WASD movement will not be in the game at launch, but in the Server Slam, do check out the additional control customization options that we added.
Yes.
They are referenced on the blog, and we want to continue to add more ways to customize the control scheme in the way that you're thinking of. So something that we're thinking about for the future.
Exactly. So thank you guys again, and thank you, Riker, for joining us this week. I know you've had a opportunity to play through the game quite a lot. We've just stuck him in a room. He's really just played the game a ton this week. But we really appreciate everyone tuning in for the Diablo 4 developer update live stream. Again, our next live stream will be sometime in May, early May, and we'll be talking a little bit about our season structure as well as our battle pass. And a few other things that we did want to call out in terms of Diablo 3. We have Season 28 currently going on right now. Yep. It's an awesome season. Highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, check it out.
If you haven't. And then, of course, with Diablo Immortal, they just came out with a big update about a week or two ago that added a new PvP system into the game. So make sure to check that out if you haven't as well. For Diablo 2, we do want to announce one quick thing as well, which is the Diablo 2 Season 4 Diablo 2 Season 4 will actually begin on May 4th. So we did want to get that out so people can plan their calendars, because it's always been a fun, exciting time within D2R for people to do the ladder race as they kind of get prepped for it, take time off, call off from work. We'll give you a doctor's note.
Alrighty then.
So, but yes, thank you guys again for tuning in to the Diablo 4 Developer Update live stream. And we really appreciate you guys and appreciate the feedback. And thank you again, Riker.
Thank you so much
for joining us.
Yeah.
Any parting words from anyone over here?
Well,
Yeah, go on.
we would like you to slam the server.
Yeah, do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You must be level 20. And, we tested, an interesting thing is that we tested the Ashava fight at level 20
Yep.
to make sure that it was doable.
Yes.
We were pretty sure it was doable, but we did want to check to make sure it was doable. They were like, go on.
It is quite challenging. If you are having a lot of trouble with it, you can always go down to difficulty level.
That's true. You
You
could always go down to World Tier 1.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
And Woody Joe, we expect you to solo it.
Solo
For
it,
sure,
yeah.
for sure. And again, you can pre-purchase Diablo 4. We have a QR code up there. We have a deluxe and ultimate version that are available for the digital version that can give you early access up to 4 days before launch. So yeah, thank you guys again and really appreciate it. And one other thing. We are going to be raiding into 2 Diablo partners, both from YouTube and on Twitch. So make sure to stay on the channel if you want to check them out. And yeah, thank you guys again. Really appreciate it. And thank you from everyone on the Diablo team. See ya.
Yeah.
That was such an awkward goodbye. It was so awkward. All right, so the server slam information is right here. This is the server slam information. Let's take a look at this real quick while we got the chance here. Get this zoomed in real good. Why not? All right, so help us gear up for launch during the Diablo 4 server slam. Calling all waters in preparation for the launch of Diablo 4 June 6th. We must enlist your demon cleansing services for one final task. Server slam. So if you guys are unaware of what a server slam is, I wouldn't expect to be able to play. Server slams are generally where they want as many people to log in as possible in one period of time and basically break the servers. They deliberately want us to break the servers. And so you may not even be able to play if we manage to break the servers, because that's exactly what they want us to do, is break the servers. It's going to be from May 12th to the 14th, of course. Let's see here. 14th is, what is that? Sunday. Although every single time they do this, every single time they say this, it ends up being the 15th. But I guess we'll find out. Everyone can come to Sanctuary's defense on Windows, PC, Xbox, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, along with couch co-op for consoles and cross-play, cross-progression for all platforms against armies of the Burning Hells, and help us test the durability of our servers. What to expect during the Server Slam. The Server Slam will give players one final weekend in Hell to experience a fraction of what Diablo 4 has to offer, while simultaneously testing the capabilities of our servers prior to launch. The prologue and the entirety of Act 1 will be your canvas to paint with the remains of slain demons. Fractured Peace, the first zone, is yours to navigate as you please and traverse its rugged landscape as a barbarian, druid, necromancer, rogue, or sorcerer, unleashing devastating power upon foes and honing your unique skill set in the process. For those who have played during our early access and open beta weekends, these details may seem familiar. However, there are a few nuances we're ushering in with the Server Slam. Any character progress made during early access and open beta will not carry over to the Server Slam, so you're going to have to re-level up your characters. Additionally, any character progress made during Server Slam will not carry over to launch. Players may level up their characters to level 20, which you will cease to gain ability points, but can continue to slay demons and earn alluring gear. Legendary item drop rate has been altered to reflect the drop rate that will be present in the launch version of Diablo 4. So this is going to be interesting to see, because I really want to see exactly what the drop rate is, because the drop rate was artificially inflated back in the beta, and I want to know exactly how rare the items are going to be. The version of Diablo 4 available during Server Slam will include all bug fixes and updates detailed in our open beta retrospective blog. Fractured Peaks is not only teeming with danger for you to vanquish, but a variety of activities to level up your character with. Visit Kavashad to repair and purchase new gear, upgrade your healing potions, access to the stash, and much more. There's also the main and side quests to experience in Sanctuary's rich story, world and legion events to exercise your martial prowess, and dungeons to amass gear. Overcome Server Slam's biggest challenge, Ashava. So they're going to have Ashava spawn multiple times. Steel yourself before one of the Burning Hell's most foul machinations, Ashava. She's a lumbering behemoth with 2 razor-sharp arm blades. Scales stronger than plate mail and hell-bent on ripping through all who interrupt her quest to bathe Sanctuary in poisonous bile. Because your characters can't surpass level 20 during the Server Slam, felling her will be quite the monumental task. So before it was level 25, and you could gear out pretty nicely. So we're only going to be able to gear up to level 20 this time, which means she's going to be a lot harder. Here's when you'll have an opportunity to combat Ashava during the Server Slam. So it looks like we're going to have May 13th, which is 1 day in. They usually give us 1 day, right? Yeah, so 1 day in on Saturday. She's going to spawn every 3 hours until the final spawn on May 14th. So we're going to have a whole bunch of Ashavas. Earn Server Slam rewards as you play. This looks like a giant horn on the horse's butt. Felling the Pestilence Spewing Ashava comes with a new earnable reward, the Cry of Ashava Mount Trophy. We've also reanimated rewards from our early access and open beta weekends, giving players another chance to earn these tokens of valor by spilling demon blood. Players who unlock these rewards will receive them once Diablo 4 launches. If you previously earned any of the following below rewards from early access and open beta weekends, you do not need to earn them again. So this is the initial causality. Casualty Cavachad with 1 character, Early Voyager reaching level 20 on 1 character, the Beta Wolfpack Cosmetic reaching level 20 on 1 character, and the Cry of Ashava Mount Trophy by defeating Ashava with 1 level 20 character. So how do you download the game? This one's actually pretty easy. You're going to open up your beta client. We've already done this several times. So you open up your beta client, and you're actually going to go down here to the little icon. So you're going to actually change this from Diablo 4 Live to Diablo 4 Beta, and you're going to install the game here. If you're on the Xbox or the PlayStation, you actually have to search for the Server Slam on the store. And says note, an Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus subscription will not be required to play Diablo 4 during open beta. Early access weekends in most regions. In Germany, a PlayStation Plus subscription will be required. Once Diablo 4 launches, an Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus subscription will be required to access some of the game's multiplayer features. Our latest Diablo 4 developer update livestream may have concluded, but you can catch up on the hellish new insights about the game through the below video on demand. Today we were joined by Director Joe Shelley, Associate Game Joe Piapora, and Associate Director of Community Adam Fletcher, accompanied by special guest host Riker, who actually asked some important questions this time, which was frickin' good. I'm glad there was somebody there who actually knew what the hell they were talking about, because the other 3 guys... I swear they're not gamers. Like, those other 3 guys are not gamers. And maybe Adam is, but Adam is definitely PR. So, I think he suppresses his gamer instincts for PR reasons. This group of Diablo experts shed some light on endgame offerings, elaborated on changes made to classes and dungeons because of player feedback and gameplay data, and held a live QA session where players fielded questions directly to our developers. So I actually was looking at the chat on Twitch during the live stream, and I was surprised at how many people wanted WASD movement. Why is WASD movement like that popular? I've never used WASD movement in a ARPG like ever. I think there was one like maybe a long time ago that had it, and I just I never used it. I was actually a little bit late to the live stream today because I freaking overslept like an idiot. So we're going to take a quick look, and I believe I missed the beginning. Give me just a second here. Alright, I'm going to pull this back up here. I missed the very beginning of this because I was late to a very important date. Is this the wrong one? This is the wrong one, isn't it? No, this is the right one. This is the one with Riker. So they played that thing at the beginning. That thing that we've already seen. We already saw that thing in the beginning. This is the,
Actually do.
This is the trailer that they played.
And we have with us some folks who will take us through those. We have with us...
Hi, I'm Joe Shelley. I'm the game director for Diablo 4. And
Pre-order.
Yeah.
I will pass it off to Riker because obviously, Riker, you've had quite a journey in getting down here, and of course, over the past week, you've been able to play the latest builds of Diablo 4, and we'd love to get your take and kind of hear, like, how was it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I've been waiting for Diablo 4 since years before it was ever revealed. I've been waiting so long, I'm literally transforming into Deckard Cain. I mean, look at me. So yeah, when you reached out for the chance to come to the offices, play the latest build, then getting to come here, getting to experience it, getting to talk to some awesome people who gave me awesome insight into the build, into the systems, and get to play with decked out characters, endgame builds, seeing all the synergies coming together with the items, the Paragon boards and everything. It's really been a blast.
Awesome. Good to hear. I know one of the first topics that we wanted to jump into was, I believe it was talking a little bit more about the world tiers and the capstone dungeons, I believe.
Yeah, because that's basically the gateway into all the other topics, right? Because we have the world tier system is like the different difficulties, and the capstone dungeons is how you unlock those and then get access to all that end game stuff. So I think we have some footage to show while Joe, you want to talk us?
Yeah, let's talk about this. So yeah, I guess the first thing we want to talk about here is when players are going through the base game experience, they're finishing the campaign, they reach level 50, they get to move into their first world tier content, which is the Nightmare tier. But before they gain access to that, they actually are going to have to go through what we call one of our end cap dungeons. These are longer and more challenging dungeon spaces that have big boss encounters mixed throughout. They kind of serve as like milestones where players are expected to pass in order to gain access to that next world tier. Now, Riker, when you were playing, you had a chance to actually check out your first end cap dungeon, at least as part of this test. Like, what was your experience playing through this?
Yeah, so the first end cap dungeon, all right. I was one of those guys who was saying veteran difficulty is too easy, crank it up. So end cap dungeon, I think the first one, it's recommended level 50. I was level 45, thought I was a hotshot, went in there. It was a humbling experience. That's how I discovered that, yeah, if you die enough times, you got to go back to town to repair your gear. So hardcore players beware. I had to learn boss mechanics, study, adjust my build, and eventually put my tail between my legs, go power up a bit more before trying it again. But then conquering it felt like a really great achievement, very satisfying.
Yeah, these aren't really spaces we expect players to want to go and try to farm and try to get a lot of things out of. It's more, these are milestones, gates for players to pass or to gain access to that Nightmare tier. Once the players actually get into this next world tier 3, they're getting access to a few new features. We're going to talk about a number of them today. So you'll start to see that areas of the world are going to be affected by the HellTide system. You're getting access to Nightmare dungeons. You're going to start to see unique items begin to drop in different parts of the game. And then you're going to start to see sacred and ancestral items also begin to appear in World Tiers 3, and then particularly in 4. And also, in addition to those things, the world, of course, is becoming more dangerous as the players step into Nightmare and Torment tiers, World Tiers 3 and 4 respectively. Monsters can do more damage. They are going to be more aggressive. There's a number of changes. Joe, do you have any thoughts on some of the changes that we made to monsters in World Tiers?
yeah, one of the things I love about the capstone dungeons functioning as unlocks for the world tiers is that you've got the general gameplay loop of getting more powerful, optimizing your build, getting more gear, and then you have something that you're testing yourself against. And then when you defeat that, you move into this entirely new world tier with all of the additional systems and mechanics and features that unlock. So you're really moving into a place where new stuff is happening. You're unlocking new cool stuff.
Yeah, enemies are more aggressive, they're more accurate, they're faster, they're moving more quickly. You start to deal with champion creatures, which are just more powerful minions that can show up in your elites and be affected in certain ways.
That's right. The monsters. have certain cooldowns between their attacks. They have logic for how they do targeting. They have projectiles. Some projectiles have seeking,
True, yeah.
so they can home to some extent. And they have some logic about how they group up and how they decide which people to target. And so a lot of those different parameters we adjust as you go up in world tiers to make the monsters more threatening, because of course the players are getting more familiar with the game, they're getting more skilled, and they're also getting access to more tools in terms of new abilities through legendary powers or even unique items.
Right? Yeah. One of the things we want to make sure we didn't do too much is it's easy for us to imagine that we could just make the game more difficult by increasing the damage the creatures deal or increasing the amount of hit points they have as you're going through these encounters. But we wanted to make sure that the world felt more dangerous as you progress into these higher world tiers, and that requires more work when working with monsters and those various encounters to kind of like create that extra level of challenge. Did you kind of determine and sense anything like kind of going from world tiers like 1 and 2 into like world tiers 3 or 4?
Oh, I definitely felt it. You stated in the difficulty descriptions, I guess I just glossed over it and I just expected more damage, more health. Yeah, I know how difficulty works. But I was starting to feel, oh, the world just seems more hostile, more aggressive. And that's when I realized, oh, there's a lot more at play in the increased difficulty here than just bigger numbers, which is nice.
There's one more thing I want to talk about with regards to world tiers as well. And this is I'm very excited about this talk in general. I've been waiting to have a lot of these conversations and with the audience they can kind of convey some of the more interesting depth and complexities associated with some of the systems. So in world tiers, you gain access to two new sets of itemization tiers. In world tier 3, you gain access to sacred items, that may appear for you. And then world tier 4, you gain access to ancestral items that could be dropped for players as they're going through those spaces. Now, with the players leveling up from 1 to 50, the items that you're getting from monsters that you're killing are going to be the power is going to be based on their strength and level. So if you are, you're playing in the beta and you're killing level, 35 monsters for whatever reason, and you're going to be getting slightly more powerful gear as a result of that because the monsters are more challenging and they're going to be dropping better gear for you. But once you have reached level 50, and that basically that flow means that as you're leveling up and you're fighting more challenging things, you're going to continue to like slowly upgrade all of your gear over time. You'll find a ring here, and a helmet there, a pair of gloves. That's great. That's how we want you to kind of like get exposed to itemization systems as you're progressing through initially in the game. But once you get into World Tier 3, things change a little bit. So items that drop you have a chance to be sacred. Not every item in World Tier 3 is sacred by default. The higher the level of the creature that you're fighting, the more likely the chances that items dropped from that creature will be sacred in nature, or also based on the kind of content you're completing. But sacred items, when they drop, they drop at a very large range in terms of the power that they can have. So you could get into World Tier 3, you could kill a pack of elites in your first dungeon in World Tier 3 at level 50. And you can get an item out of that group. Maybe it's a rare item that drops out from that group that is powerful enough that could serve a level 70 character. The sacred items here basically is going to have gear in it that goes from level 50 all the way up to level 70 in terms of like the power swing there. Once you get a little bit higher, it's a little more likely to get slightly higher in the range, but it's very likely you can get those really, really great drops really early, which we think is super exciting because we want you to be trying to like always be looking for like just the right ring, and it could show up like your best in slot ring for that for a sacred tier might show up at level 51, and that might be the one that you want to hold on to for the entirety of that tier.
And you're talking about when you're talking about these sacred items, the level requirement for this ring, for example, is not 70, right?
No. So the level, that's a great point, Joe. So the level requirement for this is actually to be set at the level at which you actually loot the item. So once again, we have trading in the game. If you are level 50 and you get a really, really great ring drop, that's going to be good for not quite your build, but like maybe you're playing a bleed barbarian. And this is really, really good for like a berserk build or like a big fury build. And you say, okay, I want to give this to you can hold on to it. That could be a really valuable item to trade because it could be that its eye power is such that it's like really good for a level 70 character, but the required level for the ring itself is level 50 because you got it at level 50. And that's going to raise with the course of time. We think that's going to be super fun for players to chase. And there's more of that as you get into the ancestral tier, but that's not all. I think the next thing we're talking about is actually legendary and unique items. So, all right. We've talked a little bit about legendary items in the past. I really want to focus on things that we haven't spent a ton of time discussing, but to give a general overview, legendary items in general are attached to like legendary powers. And these legendary powers, or reverse, legendary powers attached to legendary items. Legendary powers basically are designed to appear on multiple different slots. So, an aspect might appear on an amulet, but it might also appear on gloves, or it might appear on ring, or it might also appear on weapons. These things have a tendency to be in a lot of different places based on the power itself. And we like this because it let players like extract aspects and powers from items and put them into other items that meet certain criteria. It's fun because we want players to go and be chasing certain fantasies. It helps them kind of like hone in on certain kinds of builds and gets them excited about the potential of like kind of taking all these different Legos and kind of putting them together. Can I say Legos on stream?
Yes. Legendaries, yeah.
Legendaries is what I'm talking about. So once you get all of these legendaries together and you put them together, that's gonna be really, really fun. So that's part of the fantasy we think of legendary items. Did you actually get a chance when you're going through 1 to 50? There's only a certain number of these that are actually available. But when you get into World Tiers 3 and 4, more legendary powers are available. Did you get a chance to see any like new legendary powers as you were playing?
Oh yeah, I mean I definitely got to see a variety of legendary powers. I got a certain number of drops. Drop rates didn't feel out of control, but you guys gave me some pre-made characters as well that were decked out with builds, and I saw lots of cool synergistic powers that came together to really make a build flow well. And I think my favorite power was probably on actually a unique item, and it was for the druid that made your werewolf form your true form. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people have been saying, hey, can I just be a werewolf all the time?
Yep.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, that's the next step, right? So unique items. So unique items only begin to appear when players enter the Nightmare tier. So once you're in World Tier 3, there's a low chance that some of the game's unique items will begin to appear for players as they're
wrong. I found one in World Tier 2. Haha.
Progressing through this experience, and they're very.
Oh, these are ancestral items. Harlequin Crest, ancestral item, unique. Like it's we got the Hashako, Mother's Embrace, and Temerity. Gain 10-20% damage reduction. In addition, gain +4 ranks to all skills. Harlequin Crest is looking OP as all get out. Not only does it give you maximum life, cooldown reduction, resource regeneration, 20 to all stats, gain 20% damage reduction, and +4 ranks to all skills. People are going to be going after the Shako like crazy.
Very, very rare. These are huge chase items and opportunities here. Some of them are really important for build making. Some open up a whole different build paths and opportunities for players to go and pursue.
Got a couple more unique items. So we got the Word of Hakan, the Gloves of the Illuminator. I actually went over a lot of these in my unique item
things
video.
Are designed to be really exciting, like what you suggest there when you had that experience trying to gather the werewolf. The ability to stay in werewolf form effectively forever with that druid unique. Really, really cool stuff. And there's more of these unlocked over the course of your level progression as well.
I think I saw Shako earlier there in the list of unique items.
That's correct. Shako does make a return, and there's lots of opportunities for us to basically kind of pay homage to items that came in previous versions of Diablo, previous entries in the series. You'll see a number of different items make returns. Items like Grandfather, Shako, obviously. You'll see a few familiar, and then a few familiar favorites, and then more over the course of the game's live development.
Also, this is a good way for people to kind of see the new font changes and so forth that based off the beta learnings that we actually ended up posting last week.
Yeah, we'll get more into the beta learnings later in the live stream.
And they're very, very rare. You want to talk about, Riker? What do you think?
Well, so we have all these legendary items. One semi-deterministic way to farm for them, HellTide. It's an activity where, well, I guess you can dive into how exactly you can target farm specifically.
All right, so that was pretty much where I left off. It's kind of interesting. This right here, I wanted to talk about this real quick. So Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4 being on May 4th. So the reason why this is such a big deal is that if you had actually calculated out the number of months that it was going to take to hit Season 4, it most likely would have been like literally June 1st, like at the same time as Diablo 4. And so it just didn't make sense to have literally Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4 begin at the exact same time as Diablo 4 was going to launch, which is kind of stupid, right? So having Diablo 2 Resurrected launch on May the 4th is going to give everybody a chance to actually enjoy Season 4. Now, the problem that I have with this is, well, what changes are coming? Like, we haven't heard anything yet about Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4. So I'm assuming that we will hear something about Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4, because otherwise, yeah. Let me take a quick look real quick. I usually like to go to the Diablo news page and see if there's any specific news about like specific games. There is currently no news article on the Diablo 2 Resurrected news page for Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4. Maybe they'll be posting something eventually here, giving us some information about potentially what changes are coming. Maybe patch notes, I don't know, maybe a play test. But, you know, they just kind of dropped that on us. I'm going to be honest with you guys, there wasn't a whole lot of information here that wasn't already given to us in, like, most of the stuff. I mean, they gave us the Server Slam information. The Server Slam's not really going to have a whole lot of new information. We'll be able to experience the changes, but I'm not really 100% sure. I feel like I should probably do a recap video here real quick. Let's do a recap video on. All right, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So today we got a look at the Diablo 4 update live stream for April 2023, and they said they were going to have a special announcement, and the special announcement was, well, that they were going to be having a new beta. Well, not really a beta, they're calling it the Server Slam. It's going to be from the weekend of the 12th to the 14th, and the level cap is going to be level 20. No progress from the previous betas will carry over, so you're going to have to level up again instead. There is also going to be a special Ashava, basically like mount, kind of like cosmetic that you can earn for killing Ashava. Since it's 5 levels lower than the last beta, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kill Ashava. She was already a pain in the butt, and level 20 is going to make things a little bit more difficult. You can also earn some of the other rewards if you didn't get a chance to participate in the beta for some reason. The puppy, like for instance, the little wolf pup, is going to be available to be earned again, as well as some of the other titles. They also dropped on us this little bombshell right here, which was kind of expected, but at the same time, also just kind of weird to see it kind of just dropped in the middle of the Diablo 4 stream. But Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4 will begin on May the 4th. We have no details on Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4 at this particular point, other than just simply that it will be coming on May the 4th. Maybe there will be new rune words, maybe there won't, maybe they're gonna do nothing, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense if you really think about it, because if you had followed the thread, which is, you know, like the 4-month period normally, 4 months would have led us like directly to June 1st. And so Season 4 for Diablo 2 Resurrected would have taken place at basically the exact same time as Diablo 4 launch, which would have been really awkward. And honestly, like, as much as people love Diablo 2 Resurrected, it would have been overshadowed by the launch of a brand new game, which the launch of brand new games tend to overshadow things. So look forward to Diablo 2 Resurrected on May the 4th. We're definitely going to be playing the hell out of that. And then literally the following weekend, after the launch of Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4, is literally going to be the Server Slam beta, which is the weekend of Friday the 12th to the 15th, which I believe is Mother's Day weekend, isn't it? So that's going to be a freaking hectic 2-week little period there between the launch of Season 4 in Diablo 2 Resurrected and the Server Slam, and then literally not even really that long after the Server Slam, we're talking about 1 week, 2 weeks, about 2.5 weeks after the Server Slam is the launch of Diablo 4. So we've got a pretty busy May into June. We'll probably be playing Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4 pretty much all month, with the exception of maybe the server slam. Not really sure what new things there are to see in Diablo 4 beta, but we can definitely take a look. They did have kind of like a section here going over some of the previous stuff that we'd had already talked about. So they kind of did like a patch notes. And in the patch notes, they talked about the various changes. And most of this was literally just them kind of like defending the changes that they made. They did, however, nod specifically to that one specific, very vague change, which was legendary powers have had updated effectiveness. And he basically did say that, yes, a lot of legendary powers have changed. And he was very well aware that that was a very vague and very silly thing to put in there, because it is a very vast change that kind of like encompasses the entire game. He did, however, say, though, that these changes will be available in the server slam, so we will be able to go and check them out and actually test around with the characters to see how the changes have either made worse or better our particular favorite characters. They kind of doubled down on the summon minions will die more often thing, which was a little weird. But he did also say that there will be more corpses to use to summon the minions with. So I guess at least that's a good thing. And they did also nod specifically to the bosses that were having, like a particularly deleterious effect on the minions, because in specifically one of the major complaints of summon minions will die more often was, well, the bosses were already one-shotting the minions anyway. And he basically had went over the fact of saying that they had actually addressed a lot of the boss's abilities so that the bosses won't be one-shotting the minions as often. There are going to be like kind of like special modifiers that will prevent the bosses from dishing out massive amounts of damage to all of the minions at one time. It's not fair when the boss does a massive AoE attack. You can get out of the way as a player, which is what they basically said, but the minions can't. So they're going to look at and address the damage output of those particular abilities in terms of, like the minions who can't get out of the way. They also went through the process of further expounding on like the differences between like their backtracking in dungeons. This is an image of the previous dungeon, and then as they go forward, here, there is a picture of the fixed version of the dungeon. And it's really just a matter of like them trying to make sure that the objectives are along the route, as opposed to being like kind of like in the wrong places all over the place. Personally, I didn't really have too much of an issue with this, but I don't know. They also had a really weird comment about the overlay map system. So Riker had actually asked the question about the minimap and the overlay map. And we got this really weird kind of a response from, I believe it's Joe Piaparo, the one that's right and sitting next to Riker. He basically said that, who is it? Joe Shelley. So we got this really weird comment by Joe Shelley, which was kind of like a double down. It was like imagine I was standing on the edge of a building and I was going to jump off, and you're like, hey man, you probably shouldn't jump off the building, come on down and we'll have some coffee. And then I like went into like a diatribe about why me jumping off the building was okay and I could do what I wanted to do, and then I proceeded to jump off the building. Like, it was really freaking weird. Like, it was a really valid question, like that people wanted overlays and that the minimap was garbage, and that we were kind of wondering why the hell, a game from 2023 doesn't have a system that actually works properly. And he went into this long kind of like defensive stance of like, yeah, we don't want overlays in the game. Like, it's a choice that we've made, and you guys are going to have to deal with it. We'll be listening to the community feedback on this, but, he's pretty much like, but we're probably not going to change it, so you guys might as well stop asking. And it was really freaking weird. We didn't get any information here on the zooming in and out. I was really hoping that they were going to talk to us about letting the characters zoom out a little bit more, but maybe when we actually log in, we will, be able to zoom our characters out or something. It'll just be magical. They also got a couple screenshots of some unique items here, ancestral unique items, and so forth and so on. These are some really powerful pieces of equipment. Gives us an idea of the kind of stats we can look forward to. They were talking about legendary items, unique items. There was a really interesting comment in here specifically about the item being the level requirements of the character that you found it on, which was actually kind of weird and could potentially make for a very odd situation where you are trying to find the most powerful item you can on the lowest level character that you can, because he basically made it seem like say for instance I found a Harlequin Crest Shaco, or the ancestral unique item. If I found it at level 50, it would be level 50 requirement. And then, well, then I would have a freaking really powerful item that I could use on just about any character that I'm leveling up with. However, if I found that same item on level, 100, it would be a level 100 item, and so forth and so on. And this kind of like makes for some very odd situations, in my opinion, where we may end up seeing some very powerful items at very low levels. And I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but I guess we will find out. They also talked about HellTides. HellTides is something that they've gone over before. HellTides are basically special events that occur within the game world, and I believe they talked about the HellTides right here. You can earn special rewards through the HellTides, and I mean, that's kind of cool. I actually kind of want to experience a HellTide. I was really hoping they would have some within the beta, but it doesn't look like we're going to get access to those just yet. They also talked about PvP. Specifically, they said PvP is something that you're going to get ganked in, so there will be groups in PvP, and you can expect to get ganked by 4-player groups. So that's always, that's pretty standard PvP stuff. But it's nice to get confirmation that groups are allowed in PvP, and also that you can get ganked by those same set groups. So I would be aware of that. Let's see here. They also kind of went over the Paragon board a little bit more and talked about some of the more advanced nodes, like the crackling energy nodes and things like that. Talked about the rare nodes, which are very specific to those characters. And I mean, it was really just kind of an expanding upon the knowledge that we've already learned, but there are some interesting little tidbits here, like the legendary node here, Ceaseless Conduit. Crackling energy has a 25% chance to not consume a charge when triggered. Crackling energy's damage is increased by 2% per total intelligence you have. Current bonus of 50%. And like in here, they have the glyph sockets as well, so you can actually like socket glyphs into the board, which gives you access to some other things. This whole Paragon board is definitely something that we're going to have to explore, and we literally don't have access to it yet, which sucks. They also kind of vaguely went over the Barbarian, just simply needing a 10% passive damage reduction. They basically said that the Barbarian needed that damage reduction, and that they basically had no other choice. Like he was just too weak early on in the game, and he needed to be increased. I think that's pretty much it. I kind of felt like this one didn't really have a whole lot of information on it. I mean, this update really felt like the purpose of it was to tell us about the server slam. For those of you who participated in the early access beta and participated in the open beta, you may not find anything new in here. Being restricted to Act 1 specifically is not something that is very fun. It actually gets kind of boring after a while to be restricted to, just one particular difficulty setting. And, this particular kind of thing it does get a little bit tedious after a while because you can't progress. All you can do is just level up a bunch of characters to the same level over and over again, which doesn't really help. But we will be able to test out the changes at least. So if you're worried about any of the changes, at least you can hop on. You could play around with your favorite character. See if, some of the changes that were made has affected them deleteriously. The other important thing here is that if you haven't played, obviously this is your chance. You can hop on and you can play. I will warn you guys though, with server slams tend to be very server intensive, which means we may end up with very long queue times. There may be a lot of issues specifically with kind of like playing the game. Servers going down, other kinds of issues that might happen. The Ashava schedule for Diablo 4 Server Slam is right here. She's basically going to spawn on May 13th, starting at 9 a.m. PDT, and she's going to spawn every 3 hours after that. Last time they had some issues with the timing. It was off by 1 hour. Apparently, daylight savings time wasn't in their repertoire, and so like she was literally spawning like an hour later than what she was supposed to. So I don't know if they fixed that or not, but keep that in mind. She's going to be only fightable at level 20 this time, so you're going to have to get some poison resistance. She's going to be kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt. Now that most people know how to fight her, though, it's not too big of a deal. If you want to learn how to fight her, I do have a video on that. My Ashava fight video, I go over a lot of the details on how to fight her. This is the mount cosmetic that you can earn by killing Ashava. Right here goes on your horse. We probably still won't have access to the horses, though, in the beta. This is kind of like a graphic for the Server Slam. We will have access to all the classes, unlike the early access beta that only had access to the Rogue, the Barbarian, and the Sorcerer. So you'll be able to play all the characters during the Server Slam. You can only level up to level 20, so they've restricted us 5 levels lower than the early access beta and the open beta. You can earn the wolf, you can defeat Ashava, and you can get all of the events done, though. Level 20 is still powerful enough that you can do most of the stuff. They keep talking about the Battle Pass. I feel like that was like really weird and forced. I'm not really sure anybody even really cares about the Battle Pass for all that much. I think they're just pushing it. A lot of the questions that they answered were kind of vague. They did say that WASD movement is not coming at launch, so that is a no. And I don't even know why everybody wants WASD movement. It's really weird. It's an ARPG. ARPGs don't generally have WASD movement. I think that's pretty much it. I guess we just get to play some more of the game. I'm actually kind of more excited about the Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4 beginning on May the 4th. I want to know what they have planned for Diablo 2 Resurrected Season 4. What's coming? Like, are we going to see new rune words? Or do they have any like new patch information? What are they changing? Have they fixed anything? Like, I need to know this information. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching, and keep watching.